3-0. That's the record of your 2024 Seattle Seahawks. Now, if you read USA Today, a publication that predicted 5-12 for this Seahawks team, or you saw most of the betting odds that said this team was winning no more than 7 games. The line was mostly 6.5, 7.5. You thought, there's no way. There's no way they're going to get out to this hot start. There's no way they're going to be first place in the NFC West by 2 games. There's no way. Everybody that is, let's put it this way. If you go back before the season, whoever you listened to that said the Seahawks were going to be a bad team, we're going to finish last in this division, are casuals. That's your indication that they're a casual football fan. They're not a football head. There were some guys before the season that said the Seahawks team, they look dangerous. Listen, they were almost a playoff team, and they only got better this year. They got the best defensive mind in the league to come on. They got the guy that led the Washington Huskies to an undefeated regular season Pac-12 title, a bowl victory, and almost won the national championship in Ryan Grubb as their offensive coordinator. And they got Byron Murphy. That guy was the best defensive tackle in college football. They're only going to get better. That's what football heads would have told you. But the guys that don't know anything about ball, they saw Pete Carroll was leaving. They knew about Pete Carroll from years ago. They didn't know the current Pete Carroll. And they just didn't keep track. They didn't know what was up. You paying attention now? Undefeated Seattle Seahawks win this one 24-3 in a game that was kind of similar to the Huskies defeating Northwestern. That match was 24-5. Really, just say for the safety, it would have been the same match, and a lot of the same tendencies from both sides of the ball here. We're going to start with the offense and Geno Smith. Now, just reading this stat line, 26 of 34, 289 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. That might lead you to think not a great game, but I thought he played pretty well today. Or not today, 2 days ago. The issue here, as it is for most games with these Seattle Seahawks, is the offensive line is just not giving them enough time. So, as you know, the baseline for what a good line should give a quarterback is 3 seconds. All right, give them 3 seconds for the routes to develop. On both of these picks that Geno Smith threw, he had less than 3 seconds, and I believe both times the pressure was coming from the right side of the offensive line. The right side of the line today, by the way, Stone Forsythe took a step back, was not as good as he was last game. Anthony Bradford is who he is. He's just not great. He doesn't block well. Something I noticed is the center, Connor Williams, is mostly helping on the left side. So that should tell you that Laken Tomlinson, I suppose, is the one that needs the help. And so his deficiencies are being masked. He probably is the worst offensive lineman you have. He's your left guard. And even sometimes on the left side they came through. And not only that, but Charles Cross, who was one of the best left tackles in the league, maybe one of the best offensive linemen in the league coming into this game by many scores, by PFF as well, actually allowed a sack today. And I think there were at least 2 plays out there where he faltered a little bit. So there's a lot of pressure on him. The rest of the line is just not up to par. It's not what you need to have in order to run a proper Ryan Grubb offense. And, of course, that's, an oversimplification in some ways because, what is it? Why did Ryan Grubb have success? Was it because he had the best offensive line in college football, or is it because of his scheme? Well, you saw this game, and as you see the score here, it is 24. They did put up 24 points, and every week you're seeing improvement in him able to scheme guys open, but you can't – the scheme relies on time for these players to get open so these route concepts can develop. So listen, there were some plays where Geno was getting enough time, and this is the way this game went. This was Seahawks were winning 17-3 in the first quarter. The last play of the first quarter was the long touchdown to DK Metcalf, which, again, if you get that guy open in space, he's going to outrun everybody. I mean, that size and that speed is just incomparable. And that also happened last year. If you're a Seahawks fan, we saw this trend of this game, which I'm going to talk about here, which is you start off strong and then you end strong, but then there's a malaise in the middle. That happened in this game as well. But thankfully, you put up 17 points instead of maybe like a 7 points that you put up last year. So that was the key difference. So that's how this game went on offense. This was 17 points in the first quarter, playing well. And then second and third quarter, just not great. Not great. Not getting much done again. A lot of the pressure, that's where it came. And then you finish off the game strong with Zach Charbonnet. We'll move on to Zach Charbonnet, who had a better game today than he had last week. He was getting skiddy in some of those holes. He was getting over some of that run blocking, which is, again, the second and third quarter was just not great. I mean, most of the time he was just fighting for everything. I think I saw a stat where he had 3 10-yard-plus runs, and he mostly did that himself. So 18 carries, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bravo, Zach Charbonnet. Brendan Nelson mentioned something on his recap, which is the fact that Kenny McIntosh only got 3 carries for 11 yards, and I think that came towards the end of the game. You might want to use him more. If Kenneth Walker is just perpetually injured, which I hope he's not, hopefully he'll be back by this next week, but we'll see. You might want to ration it a little bit because Zach Charbonnet runs with, well, there's a few things. Number one, he necessarily has to break tackles in order to have success because the line is not run blocking for him very, very well. But number two, his natural style as a running back is aggressive. And that's what I've known him to be at UCLA and in his early years also with the Seahawks. He's just, he trucks guys. He uses his shoulder. I don't think he does that as much anymore. I think maybe the coaching staff has said you want to avoid injury. So what he's mostly doing now is he's just like his vision's getting better and he's looking for space. He's looking to get skinny through the hole. I saw him do that. That was good to see. As far as the receivers, we mentioned DK Metcalf had 4 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown. Most of it was on that 71-yard long touchdown. He got 6 targets. This was pretty evenly split in terms of spread out in terms of the quarterback here. Noah Fant. You saw the tight ends get more involved today. Noah Fant, 6 catches for 60 yards on 6 targets. A.J. Barner, 3 catches, 13 yards on 3 targets. And then even Farrell Brown, 1 catch for 9 yards on 2 targets. So Ryan Grubb seems to be adjusting somewhat to his circumstance, which is the fact that, you know, you're just not going to get 3 seconds on most plays. It just, as you're watching it, you see like it's more like 2 seconds that he's getting. So, well, which position is closer to you and is running shorter routes? Usually it's the tight end. So maybe he's just adapting until this offensive line can mesh. Tyler Lockett, again, very solid, 5 catches, 46 yards. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 3 for 39. Not as involved in this one, but when he gets the ball, he's evasive. So I wish he was involved more. I think he could have put up maybe another touchdown if he was involved more. But it's the product of your circumstance, and you're a below average offensive line. Dare I say even bad. I mean, I don't know relative to. I don't watch offensive lines in the rest of the league, but they're at the very least below average. So, and then Laviska Shenault, a catch for 2 yards. Of course, you're playing Jordan Brooks here on Miami on their defense. He had 9 tackles, but only 3 of them solo and a QB hit. You are happy that you traded him, or in essence traded him for Tyrel Dodson. Because Dotson had a much better game. But as we look at what was allowed by the line here, they allowed 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. They had 5 pass deflections and 7 QB hits. Still too much to my liking here. And again, on the Miami defense, Sealer had an interception. Sealer probably was the guy that stood out the most on the Miami defense today. And then Kohu had the other interception. But again, these were on tip passes, both of them. One of them I will say, I hate when an offense is inside their own 5-yard line and they pass the ball, and they did that in one of the plays that resulted in the Geno Smith interception today. I don't want to see that anymore. I want you running if you're inside your 5, especially if even closer, 3, 2, 1 yard line. You need to be running. So bad play call, bad blocking, and then it just bounced off Charbonnet's hand and was an interception. And the other one was also just poor right side of the line, not blocking, and just coming straight through. And then it was tipped by their offensive lineman and then picked off. So we're lucky. I mean, Seahawks lost the turnover battle 2-0 and still won this game 24-3. That tells you something. So that was the offense. We'll talk about the defense, but before we do, I want to give you guys some discount codes, some ways to save money. We all love saving money. Some promo codes here. First is for SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a site, the best site. And if you don't believe me, try these other sites, by the way. They're the best site for event tickets, for sporting events, for concerts, for comedy shows, for theater, for whatever any event you want to go to. They're the best site for it, the most intuitive. And I have a promo code to let you save $20, and that promo code is Football v Football. I'm going to put it in the description. So you save $20 by using the code Football v Football at checkout. Use that. And another discount code I want to give you is if you like wearing hats, if you like shirts and tote bags as well, there's a company called Huga House that is getting really, really popular. You want to get in before they get really popular. They work with football players like Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen and Braxton Berrios and a lot of influencers, comedians, Shane Gillis, and a lot of guys. You'll see them. A lot of the Barstool guys are rocking them as well. So if you want to save 15% on Huga House merchandise, use the code BALL at checkout, BALL at checkout. You get 15% off, and most of the stuff's pretty reasonable. So, saving 15% is pretty good. So, but we'll move now to the defense, which is a defense that only allowed 3 points. So well done to them. This is statistically, in terms of points, their best game because they allowed 20 points, I believe, in each of their first 2 games. Now, okay, the context here, Tua is out. However, this is a team that was supposed to contend for, a championship this year, coming back with all their offensive weapons. Tyreek Hill was voted the best player in football, by the way, in the NFL. He had 3 catches for 40 yards, and I guess he was hearing footsteps because he dropped that ball multiple times today. Tariq Woolen and Devon Witherspoon in coverage, again, stellar. They must be still like the best duo, cornerback duo in the NFL still to this day, to this week. Jaylen Waddle had a little bit of success to start the game, but then they neutralized him. He only finished with 4 catches for 26 yards. And let me put it in context that, yes, this is Skylar Thompson. This isn't Tua, but they were trying to get their playmakers the ball by a lot of short passes, okay? Same thing with De'Von Achane. Same thing with Jalen Wright. They were trying to get the ball to their playmakers, who are tremendous playmakers, by the way. Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, De'Von Achane, among the best in the league, okay? And your defense that neutralized them, you allowed only 140 pass yards, and only 107 of those was to Skylar Thompson before he got injured. He got mauled. And to a certain extent, I think the Seahawks might have been a little lucky that Tim Boyle didn't start this. Tim Boyle came in after Thompson got injured. He looks like the better quarterback, by the way. So, and I think Tyreek, after the game, said, I like Tim Boyle. So I think Tim Boyle might end up being the starter for the Dolphins, and I think they might be better off because of it. He's the guy that played behind Aaron Rodgers for a number of years. So he looks just like sharper. He looks more calm in the pocket. So he was 7 for 13 for 79 yards. He seemed to be just a little calmer. So I think they're probably going to go with him. As I mentioned, they stopped the run. They weren't really running for most of the game, but they stopped the pass. D. Eskridge had 1 catch for 30 yards. You guys remember D. Eskridge? I thought they could have kept him. And to be honest with you, when I talk about special teams, I'm going to tell you, I think he would have been a better option than D. Williams is, because D. Williams is not doing anything. So, you got a bunch of guys here that, 2 for 24 for Julian Hill, 2 for 18, Jonu Smith, 3 for – I mean, they're still wrapping up. I didn't see many missed tackles today, which is what I'm looking for, which is what I was loath to see last year, and I saw a ton of it last year and probably the year before as well. So they're wrapping up still. Derick Hall, I know, missed like a tackle early in the game, but, really made up for it later as we move to some of the players on defense here. You see Rayshawn Jenkins. He was a guy that was he makes sure now to wrap, if he doesn't catch you chest high or belt high, he makes sure to wrap you up on your legs. So you'll see a lot of the tackles where maybe the full body of the offensive player ends up forward, but Rayshawn Jenkins will make sure he doesn't miss the tackle. So well done, Rayshawn Jenkins, as your safety. Tyrese Knight here was starting because Jerome Baker is still injured. Hope Jerome Baker gets back. He's slightly better than Tyrese Knight, but Tyrese Knight, as you can see, had 6 tackles here, 1 tackle for loss. Derick Hall, the player of the game on defense for sure, maybe the player of the game, period. The best game he's had so far. He had 2 sacks, 4 QB hits, 1 tackle for loss, in addition to 5 tackles total, 4 of them solo. He's really coming into his own. This pass rush of Derick Hall and Boye Mafe are we finally have a set of pass rushers that can somewhat rival Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett. They're not there yet by any means, but they're starting to rival. And even Draymond Jones now, he had a game today. What did he do today? Let me see. He had a sack, 2 QB hits, and a tackle for loss. This is the first time I've seen him pop this season, and he had 5 total tackles. So the pass rush is starting to come together a little bit. It was evident today, Miami's offensive line is better than Seattle's offensive line. Even these backup quarterbacks are getting more time than Geno is getting, but, they're still managing to get to the quarterback. So well done. Tyrel Dodson, a little bit of a quieter game today, but he did have that great sack where he said, Mike McDonald said, if you see that look, go straight, and he did, and he just it was a beautiful sack, no unabated to the quarterback. So well done by Dodson, a QB hit as well, and a tackle for a loss as well, and he was good in there. Your middle linebacker is a guy that will give you the indication about if you're wrapping up on tackles or you're missing tackles. It's usually kind of a product of, like, is the middle linebacker able to get there in the backfield, in the middle, and a little bit further out. So well done by Tyrel Dodson. Julian Love, you saw him pop a couple times, got a tackle for loss. Jaron Reed, we got to talk about the interior defensive line here, because Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy, one of the most formidable interior defensive lineman tandems, especially when you consider Byron Murphy's a rookie. Both of them got injured in this game. Leonard Williams got a core injury, I guess a rib injury, and then later Byron Murphy left with a hamstring injury. You got to hope those guys are able to come back and don't stay out too long, because that's going to affect the effectiveness of your defense. But as you can see here, Jaron Reed filled in admirably. He had a sack and a tackle for loss, and 2 QB hits as well. And the other guys that were in there, Jonathan Hankins got a QB hit. Who else filled in for him? Mike Morris got a couple tackles. But just not nearly as imposing as those other 2 guys, who I think Leonard Williams was leading the league in QB hits. So there's no replacing him, truly. So you got to hope that those guys come back. I mentioned Boye Mafe earlier. He got a sack, a tackle for loss, a pass deflection, and 2 QB hits in addition to 3 tackles. So, again, he is very important for you. Now, Drake Thomas, who I guess was splitting time somewhat with Tyrese Knight, or like toward the end, he showed some promise as well. I saw the pass breakup that he made. So, Jerome Baker, hopefully you get well soon, but maybe you can cobble together a linebacker between, shuffling together Tyrese Knight and Drake Thomas. And the the defensive backs, they did a great job. Like I mentioned, those, Tyreek and Tariq Woolen and Devon Witherspoon. Now, I will mention Devon Witherspoon is not taking the step that I think a lot of us thought he was going to take, the step forward that I think a lot of us thought he was going to take this year. He had some really dumb penalties. He had at least one 15-yard personal foul penalty, a late hit, and he's getting into the backfield a lot, the offensive backfield a lot, but just not making the plays. Like, he's getting there, but he's not great at identifying where the guy is or getting the tackle or evading and he's good in coverage, and I think he eventually makes the tackle if he's ever beat. But as a guy that flies around, that maybe we were looking for, he's not that. Thought it Woolen, again, great in coverage. Not really, he didn't have a single tackle this game. He's not really known for his tackles. He's known for his great catch-up speed, and you'll see that actually. There's an account on Twitter called Stat Account, I believe, that showed Thought it Woolen and his coverage, and he has great anticipation. I think he might be watching a lot of film because he knows a lot of times where the receivers are going, and even if he doesn't, he's able to catch up with them because he's very fast. So that duo, I'm not scared of it. I'm not worried about it in coverage. I think they got that locked down. But some aspects of their game, of course, Thought it in tackling, and then Devon Witherspoon in becoming like a more complete player that is, kind of smart and able to make plays in the backfield. That game record that we thought he was going to iterate into, and as I think he was like the 6th overall pick in the first round. I think maybe we should maybe start, were our expectations too high, or did he just kind of plateau? I don't know, but I forgot to mention also on offense, DK Metcalf had another offensive penalty. I wish he could clean that up. I wish. Listen, maybe it's progress. It wasn't 2 penalties, so maybe that's progress. Special teams, both kickers missed a 50-plus yard field goal. I think Jason Sanders was maybe like 50 from 57. Jason Myers was from 53. Kicking is kind of weird in the league this year. Justin Tucker seems like he's missing a lot of kicks, but there's other guys like Brandon Aubrey that are making a lot. And then also you see like a lot of kickers making mid-50s up to 60-yard field goals. So kickers are getting better. So I think you need to keep up. If you're Jason Myers, he did hit a 56-yarder, which is great, but he missed the other one, which was closer. Michael Dixon, I tweeted this as well, and like I mentioned, if you're not following us on Twitter, please do. Football v. Football podcast. I was live tweeting this game as well. When you watch a lot of kickers, you come to appreciate Michael Dixon because he is very ready to receive the ball. He gets in position, ready to receive it, ready to be resilient, and then also he kicks the ball quickly and in different ways. He'll kick it high, he'll kick it straight, he'll kick it. There's a lot of different ways. So he takes his job seriously, and I think he might be a little underappreciated. We should properly appreciate Michael Dixon for what he does. A lot of times you'll see the kick return or the punt return for the other team have to back up because they don't anticipate how far Michael Dixon is kicking it, and that's to our advantage field position-wise, and maybe why it's contributing to the fact that not giving up many points. I mentioned D. Williams briefly. I think he's just not doing much. He was terrible in the first game, didn't do much the second game, hasn't done much in this game. He only 2 returns for 19 yards. We were told a lot about Laviska Shenault as well. Hasn't done much. I think D. Eskridge, who returned a kick for a touchdown in the preseason, would have been better, and he showed some flashes today for Miami. He had the longest or a longer return than no, I won't say that, but he had one return for 28 yards, and I think he can be a weapon. And this, I don't think Laviska and D. Williams can be weapons, and they're not even giving Derick Young a chance. So I know it's nitpicking, but just something to note here. Uh, in terms of the context of the game, a ton of penalties called, a lot of illegal formations. I don't know if there's like a rule change about illegal formation now that wasn't relayed to the teams, but in that horrible second and third quarter of this game, there were a ton of penalties called. There were 22 accepted penalties in this game, but I think there was maybe an additional 8 of them that were declined, so the game was stopped maybe 30 times for penalties. So I think there were 5 straight penalties called on the Dolphins. At one point, I think I counted 5 or 6. And even though, I like to see that, and I think at one point they were in like 4th and 39 or something. It's just not fun to watch. The league needs to relay to either the refs or the teams what illegal formation is so they can get that cleaned up, because the product needs to get better. I saw a lot of stuff on social media about how the product this Sunday overall wasn't great for people to watch. So I think a lot of that has to do with some of the penalties. So, clean that up, NFL. Looking ahead now, the Seahawks are going to face the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. Their biggest test of the season, maybe by a significant margin, especially they're in prime time, and I believe they're playing at Detroit, if I am not mistaken. Yes, they're at Detroit. So that's going to be a tough game. You got to hope for a few things. You got to hope that your guys are going to get back from injury. You got an extra day of rest. You got to hope for Kenneth Walker. You got to hope for Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, and Jerome Baker, probably in that order. Maybe Leonard Williams actually a little more important, but you got to hope, this happens in the league. Obviously, every team is suffering injuries, especially in NFC West. Of course, Christian McCaffrey and Debo and Puka and Cooper Kupp, some of the best offensive players in some of these teams are suffering injuries, which is why contributing to the fact that if you're watching, you can see here the Seahawks are 3-0, and all the other 3 teams in the division are 1-2, and it's number 1 Seattle, number 2 Arizona, number 3 Rams, number 4 San Francisco. It's still early; it's still only week 3, but you're approaching, almost a quarter of the way through the season, and trends are going to start to develop. So we're going to see if this team is legit depth-wise. As you move to Detroit now, Sam Laporta, I know, is an injury that they have, but everyone else seems to be. They got a 2-headed monster running back with Montgomery and Gibbs. You have great receivers in Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams, and they're just a scary team. Of course, Aiden Hutchinson, he's gonna eat up this offensive line. So we'll see. There's an opportunity here to make a statement, to finally prove to the rest of the country that this team is legit. You hope for a win, but more realistically, maybe you probably hope to keep this close, to get some respect nationally, and to start bumping you in some of these rankings. They were 21st in PFT last week, and now you're only one of 2 teams that's undefeated in the NFC, and one of 5 teams undefeated in the league. So that'll do it. That was a lot. Thanks for if you're still here to the end, I really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoy some of these recaps and these insights. It's going to be fun. If you're a Seattle football fan overall, you got the Huskies on Friday primetime, and you got the Seahawks on Monday primetime. So you got your weekend kind of free of Seattle football. But it's going to be great to see them in primetime. We'll see. This is another test for both of these teams, for the Huskies and the Seahawks. So 3-0, and everything's still in front of you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time, have a fantastic day, football fans.